Hi, I'm Gary Smith. The fictitious person in the Gilded Age that I've selected for review is a black Georgian convict who was leased to an entrepreneurial private construction company that built railroads. The convict was required to complete his prison sentence while working for the construction company. While serving his sentence, the convict lived in prison-like conditions in construction camps. My opinion is that given the conditions the black convict likely lived under, his experiences in the postbellum economy in Georgia were likely unpleasant. After the Civil War, 9 southern states, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina, as a result of empty state treasuries and increasingly large numbers of convicts, established the convict leasing system whereby convicts were leased to private businesses. Businesses were responsible for housing, feeding, and guarding convicts during their sentences. The work discipline, which often included whipping for poor work performance, was the responsibility of the businesses that leased the convicts. The convicts were overwhelmingly black. Georgia was one of the first states to lease its prisoners to private businesses, which began in 1868. The first business in Georgia to lease convicts was a construction company engaged largely in railroad building. This company agreed to take convicts sentenced to the penitentiary and relieve the state of Georgia of all expenses for their care. Another Georgia business to lease convicts was the Dade Coal Company that leased convicts for 5 years at $11 per year and worked them in coal mining at Raccoon Mountain in Dade County, Georgia. The state of Alabama also leased convicts to mine coal. In 1888, convicts worked almost exclusively in the Birmingham area mining camps of one company, Tennessee Coal and Iron. Coal mining was extremely difficult work, and hundreds of convicts labored in 12-hour shifts, undercutting and blasting seams of coal and loading the product in coal cars. A first-class man was expected to produce 4,000 pounds of coal each day. Failure to meet a quota could mean whipping, and whippings were common. Food and sanitary conditions varied at the coal camps. Many prisoners got sick and died at the coal camps, and death rates of 5% were typical. In 1983, 36% of the men working at the Milner, Alabama coal mine died. In some southern states, criminal laws were enacted which increased penalties for crimes. In Mississippi, legislators secured passage of what was called the Pig Law, which defined the theft of property worth more than $10, including cattle and swine, as grand larceny, punishable by up to 5 years of hard labor. A similar law in Georgia made stealing hogs a felony. These laws increased the size of the prison labor pool, in which blacks comprised over 95% of the prison populations. Joseph E. Brown was governor of the state of Georgia during the Civil War, and after the war became a Georgia United States Senator. Brown became fabulously wealthy in his investments, which included agricultural land, real estate, railroads, and iron and coal mines in northwest Georgia. Brown used prisoners leased from the state of Georgia for labor, which was a prime factor in the growth of his fortune. Prison labor appears to have been profitable to Southern entrepreneurs in the Gilded Age. However, prisoners like our aforementioned Georgian convict did not benefit from it. Railroad companies employed large numbers of convicts. During the 1870s, 2,650 miles of track were laid in the states east of the Mississippi. In 1884, more than 5,000 convicts worked on building southern railroads. Louisiana convicts were used to build and prepare levees. For the years 1882 to 1894, the death rate of convicts employed in levee construction was 10.5%. The reason given for such a high death rate was that most of the convicts worked on river levees where malarial levels were extremely high. One brutal year, 1896, saw 216 inmates die out of a total of 1,001 inmates. The decision to lease state convicts to private employers occurred because southern state governments lacked the financial resources to build new prison facilities after the Civil War. In spite of the fact that convict leasing was profitable to private businesses, there were problems that eventually doomed convict leasing. Camp discipline was repressive. Prisoners were whipped, sometimes brutally, for poor work performance. Food quality varied in camps significantly. Convicts throughout the South were chained to each other at night in overcrowded, dirty stockades. They frequently were overworked and often forced to continue working while sick. There were instances in which convicts were whipped to death. The 9 southern states eventually did away with convict leasing. Alabama was the last state to do so in 1928. Thank you very much.